In this video, I'm going to go over the high feet session. High feet are usually there, and we just don't have the mobility or technical skill to access them. And contrary to most people's belief, the number one thing that is impacting your ability to use high feet is not how tall you are, not your hip mobility, but your self-limiting beliefs. If you think that a climb is too boxy for you and you can't use that foot and it's too scrunched of a position, you're right. You absolutely can't unless you get that thought out of your mind and start trying and getting into those positions. So having some structured practice around just like getting into those hard positions, getting your foot next to your face, getting uncomfortable when it comes to high feet is going to be really useful here, and that's what this session is for. With that being said, there are some things that are going to really help you to access high feet a bit better, and they really lie more in body positioning than hip mobility. But since hip mobility is a factor, I am going to go over a little bit of an activation that you can do so you can better access high feet within the session. And in general, we're training mobility, so that should be improving over time as well. All right, so for the hip mobility, there's kind of two things I want you to play with, and they're kind of the same thing, but it's bringing your foot closer to your center of mass. So that's like kind of like this, or like that, and bring your center of mass closer to your foot. So that's just here, scrunching up. And you'll notice that this will feel very much like getting a high foot. And just spending a few minutes just messing around with getting your foot up and bring it close to your center of mass, and bringing your center of mass down closer to your foot will make it so you're a lot more mobile. And make sure to do a bit of the opposite as well. So bring your center of mass really far away from your foot. You don't want to get so scrunched up that like you're stuck, shaped like a C. When it comes to accessing high feet, the position of our head and our hips is really, really important. And you'll find that's true with like any skill in climbing, but it's especially potent when it comes to high feet. So if I want to just pick up my foot using only my hip flexor, that's about as high as I can get. Right there. That's, I mean, like, it's pretty much it. But if I want to get my foot up as high as I can, I lean away. I put my head away and my hips towards, but it's really, it just feels like leaning away. So if you want to get your foot up higher, you have to lean away from the foothold. So that's tip number one. And tip number two is kind of like really about accessing footholds. So you can get your foot onto a hold, but if you want to use it, you have to be able to put weight through it or put weight over it. So it's almost the opposite of getting to the foothold. So you want to get your foot away, you want to get your body away from the foot to get it up, and then to get on, you lean towards. And when I describe it, it's like, yeah, no shit, you want to put your weight over the foothold. But it's in practice, if you actually pay attention to it, you're like, oh, maybe I'm actually not weighting that foothold. And that's kind of why I'm not using it. So just paying attention to that. And lastly, oftentimes we will have a bit of excess tension somewhere in our body. In our chest or our back or our hip flexor that is preventing us from really getting over the foot, using the foot. Oftentimes it's actually in our ankle. But just noticing when a move isn't working, or when it's working but it's not working as well as you want it to, where am I holding tension that is not needed? And that's just the last thing that I'm going to give you to play with. There's many things that you can play with, and I hope you'll discover some tips of your own. In the rest of this video, I'm going to go over an example high foot session. And it's going to follow a similar contour that most of the other technical climbing sessions do, which is to have some isolated practice followed by some integrated practice. For the isolated practice, I want you to do a few moves per side, playing with a high foot that is facing medially, so that's towards you, laterally, away from you, and directly up. You'll find that these are all pretty different, especially the foot facing away from you. It is just a whole different ballgame, and it is very useful to play with all of those situations. And then for the integrated practice, you're just going to do 1 to 3 boulders that have a high foot. I'm going to do a bit of an analysis of what my session looked like, some things that I noticed when I was doing it, and I hope you enjoy. So starting right off with the isolated practice, I have a medial facing foot. Something I do pretty well here is to pull through the foothold, but I didn't really get my hips as close to the wall as I could have, and that caused me to not get as much out of the foothold as I could have, and I had to pull pretty hard on my right hand. So really pressing my hips to the wall is something I could have done better. And you can get your own footage and notice these things about yourself too. So next up we have a lateral facing foot. Lateral facing feet are great opportunities for heel hooks. Anytime you see a lateral facing foot, there's a chance you can put up a heel. And here we have a upward facing foot. I kind of get 2 body positions out of this one foot using that back flag. And this foot was hard because I had to toe down quite hard to really get as much as I wanted out of it. And next up we have the integrated practice. So for the integrated practice, I chose to just do 1 boulder and make it pretty hard. And it kind of revolved around this one move where I had to really push off of this super high foot and do this giant move. I was really struggling with getting my hips close enough to the wall that I could generate to this next hold. And even once I got the hold, I had to really keep the bottom hand. So this was quite hard, and it was high velocity. So if you're in the strength phase, you shouldn't be doing climbs like that. But nonetheless, it was an interesting exploration.